Welcome to the Voice of Business podcast. We're back again at Bennett's. Big thanks to them for providing this beautiful showroom for this, and to Janice Shadow-Digsky Media for producing this podcast. My guest today, we've got Rebecca Schillemat, Executive Officer with the Peterborough and the Kawarthas Home Builders Association. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we're going to start off with a really simple thing. We need homes and your members build homes, right? Give us the rundown on what the current housing situation is here in Peterborough. Easy question for you, right?
Yeah, well, and it's not just Peterborough. Like the interest rates are high, the buyers can't afford to get homes, and the process keeps changing. There's been a lot of legislative changes over the past 2 years. The building code just changed, and that comes into effect in January. So it's really hard for anyone to keep up with all these changes to meet the requirements to build the homes that we need, and then not a lot of people can afford the homes that we need. So there's not enough supply, but there's not a huge demand right now either, because no one can afford what can be afforded to be built.
Yeah, that's a bit of a tough situation. So if we're looking at the various barriers, right? Everybody's trying to eliminate these barriers to building homes, and every level of government, everybody's very interested in this topic. What are those main barriers? You talked a little bit about interest rates. Is it access to land, financing, red tape? What do you hear from your members?
So recently, the past year, financing has been an issue for builders, and we know it's been an issue for home buyers for 2 or 3 years. So when the buyers don't have money, and then the builders can't get money, no one can build anything, because you need money to get anything done. So then the builders have to kind of wait until they have enough buyers, or they can get the financing they need to build the homes that we need.
Okay. Now, we've got the city of Peterborough, which has its own set of rules. You have the county of Peterborough, which has its things it oversees, and then there's 8 townships, right? How is it building within the region, between those different areas? We tend to see more growth in certain areas, but sometimes that's tied to water and sewer service availability, because that's a big need when it comes to building housing. Is it fairly universal across the area, or is there a lot of things you got to pick up and learn on?
Well, it's like the planning statement, the provincial planning statement, and the building code is the same everywhere, but there's enough gray that it's interpreted very differently in every township. But even the same people in the same department will interpret something differently, which makes it really tricky, because you don't know who's going to decide what to pick on with your plans. And there's a huge staff shortage. There's not enough planners, and there's not really enough building inspectors. And I know in the county, they often just kind of jump around. So they're always looking for staff, and they're always moving around, and that inconsistency makes it really hard, because you might have a plan with one person and then they leave to go to a different opportunity, and you're kind of halted until that municipality can hire or find someone to take on that workload. The city of Peterborough did a development approval process report that was kind of finalized in the fall, and they said they're short 5,000 hours in the planning department.
Wow.
That's 3 full-time people at least. So there's a huge shortage of people, but the builders also, they have had a shortage of labor, but now they just have a shortage of work, so they don't have a labor issue because there's no work.
That's a tough situation, right? Everybody wants to build. To not have that available. Now, we're talking a fair bit about municipalities, because they are the hands-on ones when it comes to land use, zoning, inspections, all those types of things. But everybody's got a housing plan, provincial government, federal government. What are their roles in home building?
The province has a huge influence on home building, because they kind of control what the municipalities get to do, right? They make the provincial policy statement. We saw in the fall when the housing goal was set to different municipalities, and now on the province's website there's a housing tracker, which is lovely, so we can see every big city has a goal of how many homes they're supposed to build, and we can see how much they've built so far this year. So the city of Peterborough has built 10% of their goal. The city of Kawarthas Lakes has built 25% of the goal. But when I added them all up, and the entire province is at 25% for the year of what they should be at, because there's not enough people buying. There's stock that's sitting waiting to be sold, so no one can move forward with new projects. So the province does have a lot of influence. But then again, the municipality, they are the ones that have the hands-on influence. The federal government does control. They've made some changes in the past year. Like they removed the HST or their portion from the purpose-built rentals. So purpose-built rentals have been kind of taking up now since that happened. That's been a really positive change. But they also had an underused housing tax that they put out. Sounds great. If you're a builder and you have a house you can't sell, you now have to do extra paperwork and pay your accountant or whoever to show the government that this isn't an underused house. It's stock that you have built that you're waiting to sell.
Yeah.
And then there's a few tax things that the government has came through. The federal government has put out that had just made a lot of extra paperwork for builders, and especially some of the really big companies, that things you would never think of that take a lot of time and money to make sure you're in compliance with.
Yeah. So that being said, everybody does have a housing plan. Do you want more government help, or do you ideally just want them to be out of the way? Other than the obvious things, the inspections and that kind of thing.
Builders are private enterprise. They're businesses, and businesses do well when they can make their own decisions. Like, it would be nice to have less government in the way so that housing can be built. The building code, the housing in Canada is very safe. It's very energy efficient. The building code has done so much over the past few years to take care of that. So there's a lot of extra things that municipalities have been looking about and talking about adding on that are completely unnecessary, that just make the process that much longer. Like every time there's a new set of design guidelines, then that means the builder has to hire a consultant to figure out how to comply with that specific municipality. And every municipality has a different set of guidelines. So this is extra time and money to conform to something that's only specific to one area. And it makes it really hard to repeat what a builder is doing if they want to build a lot of housing in a lot of different areas.
Yeah. Now, the price of housing has become one of those go-to small talk conversation topics, right? It's up there with the weather. What all goes into the fact that, housing has become so expensive, right? Like, people want to gawk at things that were $300,000 or $400,000 a few years ago are now $800,000 or $900,000 now. And maybe you can explain a bit of that.
So there is like land speculation issues. It's not an issue out here, but I know in other areas, like there was a proposal out in Niagara that one of the builders I was talking to this week said, if this huge tower was put through planning and the city approved it, but if they don't build it, then that just drives up the cost of the land, and that means all the land around it also has to increase in value. But nothing actually happened. It was just all like paperwork that triggered that. So when land costs too much, then it's hard to keep housing affordable. Out in our area, this is cottage country, so we have Airbnbs. And when people are buying houses as Airbnbs, or there's a lot of students, we have student investments, like that takes stock off the market for residents that want to live here. And that's really hard for our area. Yeah.
Okay. Now, hopefully, as we get more houses built, we can increase affordability, and let's see what we can do to add to that stock. But it seems like we have a lot of things standing in the way at the moment. Now, as far as what the Chamber of Commerce can do, we aren't home builders, but I'm curious what we can do to help your organization, your members, to advocate to get what they need to get that stock increase.
Yeah, the Chamber's actually been great at collaboration. You guys, you have networking, you promote businesses working together and different people working together. So continue to promote the city and county to work together, and the collaboration between even the builders and the municipalities to get housing built. Like, you've seen examples in different municipalities in the county where builders have been working really closely with the municipality, and it's brought great things. Cavan Monaghan has a new fire station and a new community arena and all that. And that was a collaboration with the builders. But it just takes time to build that relationship and some consistency. And it is hard to find that in a lot of places.
Yeah. All right, so one final question. So if you got a magic wand to address one area that your members, would like fixed, what's the one thing that you could just, if you had that magic wand, you'd fix it right now?
I'd probably get some buyers, like people that want to buy houses, give them the ability to buy the houses, because there's so many, people that live in the city that are renting and they're kind of stuck in renting. And yeah, get rid of government and have some buyers. That's all we need.
All right. Well, Rebecca, thanks so much for joining me.
All right. Thank you, Joel.
All right.